Me and my wife were coming home after dining out. It was a cold and chilly night and I just wanted to get a good sleep. The elevator which we used quite often was having some issues, and was getting repaired. So we had to use the other elevator, which was rumored to be not so good. This elevator was old, creepy and rusty. People would prefer to use stairs instead of that elevator, but I ignored all of this and decided to go. As I stepped into the elevator, my wife Laura by my side, the metallic doors slide shut with a mechanical hum, enclosing us in a claustrophobic space. The air was thick and a chill ran down my spine as the elevator began to move upwards. The elevator stopped on the 7th floor. Its sudden stop causing Laura to grip my hand tightly. The doors creak open, revealing an empty hallway. We exchanged puzzled glances before cautiously stepping out. As we explored, the building seemed to be frozen in time, devoid of any signs of life. Suddenly, a distant echo of laughter resonated through the corridor. We exchanged nervous glances and quickened our pace. The laughter intensified, echoing off the walls like a haunting melody. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as we turned a corner and came face to face with a flickering, room 731. We cautiously opened the door. The wallpapers were faded and the furniture was covered in dust. As we stepped further inside, the laughter grew louder. Laura clutches my arm, her eyes wide with fear. Shadows play on the walls, taking on sinister shapes that seem to move with a malevolent intent. The air became heavy with an otherworldly presence, and I felt a sense of dread that refused to be ignored. We decided to leave the room, but the hallway outside was changed. Doors appear where none existed before, and the corridor stretched endlessly in both directions. Panic sets in as we realize we are trapped in a shifting labyrinth. The laughter grew louder, now echoing from every direction, disorienting us. As we round another corner, we come face to face with a mirror that reflects not our own terrified faces but distorted, nightmarish versions of ourselves. I can feel the weight of guilt and fear pressing down on me. In a final desperate attempt to escape, we race back to the elevator, but the doors remain closed. The laughter and whispers surrounded us, mocking our futile efforts to break free. The air became suffocating, and I saw the terror mirrored in Laura's eyes. Time loses meaning as we wander through the shifting corridors. Exhausted and defeated, we collapsed to the floor as the laughter reached a deafening climax. Suddenly, the elevator doors finally opened. I didn't know how that even happened. We staggered inside. The air was heavy with the oppressive atmosphere that clung to us. As the doors close, I steal a glance at Laura. And we both know that the horrors we witnessed will forever linger in the shadows of our minds. The elevator ascends, carrying us away from the nightmarish depths below. Yet, the echoes of laughter and whispers continue to reverberate in our minds, a haunting reminder that some horrors cannot be escaped, and the boundaries between reality and nightmare are fragile and easily shattered.
My friend Chloe and I were coming back from a party at our friend's house. Everything was going fine like always, but I didn't know that a terrible night was waiting for me. Chloe dropped me at my apartment and also offered to go with me, but I refused, saying it was late already. After that she went home. The lights were also out that night. It was so dark that I wasn't even able to see my own hands. I tried to reach the security guard, but he wasn't there also, so I thought maybe he left. Because clearly I was irresponsibly late that night. I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight and tried to reach the elevator. I think it was around 3 a.m. at night. Everything was so silent and quiet that night. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button to my floor. The metal doors closed with a creak, enclosing me in a space that seemed to tighten around me. A shiver ran down my spine as the elevator began to move, but as the elevator lurched upwards, a strange feeling of dread settled in the pit of my stomach. Suddenly, the lights inside the elevator flickered and went out, plunging the metal box into darkness. I panicked and reached for my phone to navigate the cramped space. The air grew heavy, suffused with an inexplicable tension that made my skin prickle. As the elevator continued, I felt an unshakable presence, an unseen observer sharing the tight confines with me. In the dim light of my phone, I noticed an unsettling reflection in the mirrored walls, some kind of distorted figures. I became so terrified that my heart started pounding and I began to sweat. The elevator suddenly stopped, sending me stumbling forward. There was total silence for an instant. I strained my ears, but all I could hear was my own rapid breathing. After a complete silence for a while, I heard a chilling whisper that seemed to echo my name. "Sophia," it murmured, sending a shiver down my spine. I grabbed my phone and tried to find the source of that voice. But all I saw was my own terrified face on the walls. I pressed the emergency button, hoping for a lifeline, but as soon as I did that, a creepy voice responded. "There's no escape." The words hung in the air, leaving me paralyzed with fear. The elevator started to move again, with an unnatural speed. I closed my eyes, hoping to shut out the nightmare unfolding around me. Suddenly I sensed a touch on my shoulder and a voice whispering, "Join us, Sophia." After that, the only thing I remembered was waking up in a hospital with my friend Chloe beside me. She told me that I was found unconscious in the elevator by the emergency staff. I guess the emergency button worked.
I was driving out of town to visit my sister one night. I left the house and started traveling at sunset because I like driving at night. It was a 10-hour drive, and I usually don't stay at motels, but after 5 hours of driving I got really exhausted, so I decided to take a rest for the night. There was an old hotel at a distance of 10 miles named Cassius Hotel. The other motel was about 50 miles ahead of me. I parked my car and went to the receptionist. He gave me the keys to a room on the 3rd floor. I took the keys and went to the elevator. Like the hotel itself, this elevator was creepy and old. The lights inside the elevator were flickering frequently. I stood there for a moment and stepped inside the elevator. As soon as I stepped in, I felt as if something rushed through my veins. I thought it only happened because I was tired and exhausted. I pressed the button for the 3rd floor, and the elevator doors groaned closed. There was a complete silence, and the only thing I was able to hear was the creaking of the cables as the elevator climbed higher. As the elevator reached the 3rd floor, the doors opened hesitantly. I stepped into the hallway. Room 307 awaited at the end. I was shocked to see that its door was slightly opened, revealing a darkness. Ignoring the instinct to turn back, I entered the room. The door closed with a click behind me. I unpacked my belongings, trying to distract myself from the unsettling atmosphere. I lay on the creaking bed, hoping sleep would be my escape from the silence. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness, and the only sound was my heart beating so fast. I began to panic and tried to reach for the bedside lamp. When the light flooded the room once more, I had this feeling of being watched, and it was getting intensified. I heard a whisper, barely audible, echoed through the room. Attempting to dismiss the unease, I closed my eyes, only to be startled by the distant wail of the elevator. It was a haunting sound, one that seemed to pierce the veil between the living and the unknown. I also heard some footsteps through the hallway, and it seemed like someone was approaching my door. I stood up and went to check the hallway, but no one was there. I came back and tried to sleep. As my eyes were about to close, suddenly the door handle rattled softly. I opened the door again, but the corridor was empty. The only sound was the creaking of the elevator, drawing me towards it like a moth to a flame. The doors stood ajar, revealing an abyss of darkness within. As if propelled by an unseen force, I stepped inside, the doors closing behind me with a hollow thud. The descent was surreal, the elevator passing through floors that seemed to defy logic. I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck, and the sensation of being surrounded by an unseen entity. The doors suddenly opened to a subterranean level, a place unknown to the hotel's regular guests. The air was heavy and chilly inside. I followed the passage to a forgotten chamber, its walls adorned with eerie symbols and faded paintings depicting scenes of despair. In the center of the room stood an old-fashioned elevator. This was identical to the one I had descended in. I heard the same voice that echoed once more, and the elevator doors opened to reveal a ghastly scene. I witnessed a spectral figure stepping out of the elevator. I shouted loudly and rushed to my room to pack my belongings, but I was so terrified that I only picked my phone, my wallet and the car keys. I ran towards my car and then left the hotel. I had never been that terrified in my whole life.